Admiral Zexhai clicked his mandibles in amusement as he studied the holographic display floating before him. The blue projection showed a primitive world orbiting a yellow star, its surface covered in vast oceans and scattered landmasses. Intelligence reports scrolled past in streams of glowing text, detailing the technological capabilities of the planet's dominant species. Humans. He said the word like it tasted bitter on his forked tongue. Such an unremarkable name for such an unremarkable species. His second-in-command, Commander Krilltalk, stepped forward on his 6 legs, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the bridge's artificial lighting. The preliminary scans are complete, Admiral. Their technology level is disappointing. Zexhai's 4 eyes focused on different sections of the report simultaneously. Chemical propulsion for their spacecraft. Primitive energy weapons that require solid projectiles. Their largest military vehicles still use combustion engines. He let out a series of clicks that passed for laughter among his species. How did such backwards creatures ever achieve spaceflight? The bridge crew of the Imperial Dreadnought Conquest's Edge shared in their commander's mirth. They were part of the hegemony, a galactic empire that had conquered over 3,000 worlds across 47 star systems. Their technology was so advanced that they had forgotten what it meant to struggle against inferior forces. "Show me their weapons," Zexhai commanded. The hologram shifted, displaying various human military hardware. Assault rifles that fired small metal bullets, artillery pieces that launched explosive shells using chemical reactions, fighter jets that burned fossil fuels and could barely reach supersonic speeds. Most amusing of all were their ground vehicles, massive metal beasts they called tanks that crawled across terrain on metal tracks. "Look at this monstrosity." Krilltalk gestured to the image of an M1 Abrams tank with obvious disdain. 68 tons of primitive armor plating. A chemical-powered cannon that fires solid metal rounds. It moves at the pathetic speed of their ground-based creatures. The crew erupted in another round of clicking laughter. In comparison, their own hover tanks were equipped with plasma cannons capable of melting through solid rock, energy shields that could deflect most known weapons, and anti-grav engines that allowed them to move in 3 dimensions at incredible speeds. Their most advanced projectile weapons cannot even penetrate. Our basic infantry armor noted weapons. Master Thrixon from his position at the tactical station. A single squad of our soldiers could eliminate hundreds of their warriors. Zexhai nodded, his satisfaction growing. This would be easier than their conquest of the Zentorian crystal farmers, who had at least possessed energy-based defensive systems. The humans appeared to be stuck in some primitive technological phase, relying on crude mechanical devices and chemical reactions for warfare. "What of their space capabilities?" the Admiral asked. "Minimal," Krilltalk replied, pulling up images of human spacecraft. "Their largest vessels are barely the size of our escort fighters. They use chemical rockets for propulsion and have no faster-than-light capability. Their weapons are limited to the same primitive projectile systems they use on their planet's surface. The humans had only recently established small colonies on nearby planets in their system. Their expansion was slow, methodical, and completely dependent on massive supply chains that took months to deliver basic materials. It was the mark of a species still crawling out of its technological infancy. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Vextar from across the bridge, "we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld. It appears to be some form of diplomatic message." "Put it through," Zexhai commanded, curious to see what these primitives had to say. The hologram flickered and resolved into the image of a middle-aged human female wearing what appeared to be formal attire. She spoke in their crude verbal language, but the translation matrix quickly converted her words. "Greetings, unknown vessels. This is Secretary General Martinez of the United Earth Alliance. We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization and hope to establish diplomatic relations. We have prepared cultural exchanges and scientific data to share with your people." The bridge fell silent for a moment before erupting in the loudest clicking laughter yet heard. Aboard the Conquest's Edge, several crew members had to steady themselves against their control panels. "Diplomatic relations," Zexhai wheezed between clicks. "They wish to share their primitive knowledge with us." "Should we respond, Admiral?" Vextar asked, his own mandibles still twitching with amusement. "Of course," Zexhai composed himself and activated the return transmission. "Tell them we accept their invitation for cultural exchange. We shall visit their world very soon to learn about their ways." The human woman smiled, apparently pleased by the response. If only she knew what was coming. After the transmission ended, HFY turned to address his senior staff.
Gentlemen, we have before us the easiest conquest in the history of the hegemony.
A species so primitive they still fight wars with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Their largest ground vehicles are slower than our personal transport pods. He gestured to the tactical display showing Earth's defense capabilities. They have no orbital platforms, no energy shields, and their most powerful weapons would barely scratch our hull plating. This will not be a war. It will be a harvesting operation. Commander Krilltalk stepped forward. What are your orders, Admiral? Prepare the invasion fleet. Bring only minimal forces. 2 battle cruisers and a single ground assault division should be more than sufficient. We wouldn't want to embarrass ourselves by bringing too much firepower against such harmless opponents. The crew began implementing the invasion protocols with efficient precision. Soon the hegemony's advanced war machines would descend upon Earth, ready to add another primitive world to their ever-expanding empire. As HFY watched the preparations, he couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. Where was the challenge? The glory of overcoming a worthy opponent? These humans would provide neither. Their crude weapons and primitive tactics would crumble before hegemony technology like sand before a hurricane. At least it will be over quickly, he muttered to himself, unaware that he was about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating one's enemies. The humans may have appeared primitive, but they had something the hegemony had long forgotten: the desperate ingenuity of a species fighting for its very survival. The invasion fleet departed 3 days later, confident in their inevitable victory. None aboard suspected that their advanced civilization was about to meet something far more dangerous than superior technology. Human determination backed by weapons designed for one simple purpose: to kill efficiently and without mercy. 3 weeks after first contact, the hegemony's invasion fleet hung in the shadow of Earth's moon like predators waiting to strike. Admiral HFY stood in the observation deck of his flagship, watching the blue-green world slowly rotate beneath them. The planet looked even more primitive up close. No orbital defense platforms, no energy barriers. Just the naked vulnerability of a species that had never faced a real threat from the stars. Intelligence report complete, Admiral, announced Commander Krilltalk as he approached with a datapad in his clawed hands. Our stealth probes have mapped their entire military infrastructure. HFY accepted the report with barely concealed amusement. Enlighten me about these fearsome human defenses. Krilltalk activated the holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional map of Earth's military installations. They have approximately 200,000 active combat vehicles spread across their various nation-states. The majority are smaller wheeled vehicles with minimal armor and light weapons. Their heavy armor consists of roughly 8,000 main battle tanks. 8,000, HFY repeated mockingly. Our advanced scouts alone deploy 12,000 hover tanks. Yes, sir. But here's where it becomes truly pathetic. Krilltalk manipulated the display to zoom in on various tank formations. Their most common heavy vehicle is this M1 Abrams tank. It weighs nearly 70 tons, moves at a maximum speed of 42 miles per hour on flat terrain, and its main weapon fires a single projectile at a time. The Admiral studied the primitive machine with growing disdain. The tank was nothing more than a metal box on tracks, its cannon barely larger than the personal weapons carried by hegemony infantry. What sort of damage can this thing actually inflict? Minimal, Admiral. Their standard ammunition is a depleted uranium penetrator round. Our materials analysis indicates it would require over 50 direct hits to breach even our lightest armor plating. Meanwhile, a single pulse from our plasma cannons can vaporize their entire vehicle. The bridge crew had gathered to listen, their mandibles clicking with amusement as the report continued. They were professional soldiers of the hegemony's finest fleet, veterans of dozens of campaigns against technologically superior foes. These humans wouldn't even qualify as a training exercise. What of their air support? HFY inquired. Equally primitive, Krilltalk replied, shifting the display to show human aircraft. They rely on jet engines that burn fossil fuels, limiting their speed and range. Their missiles are chemical-based and would be easily intercepted by our point defense systems. Most importantly, they cannot operate in the vacuum of space. So once we eliminate their ground-based airfields, they'll be completely helpless, the Admiral concluded. Correct, sir. Our atmospheric fighters can engage them at ranges where their weapons cannot even reach us. It will be a massacre. Tactical Officer Yax Mole stepped forward from his station. Admiral, I've completed the invasion timeline. With minimal resistance expected, we can achieve complete planetary subjugation within 72 hours. Zexai nodded approvingly. Excellent. What's our battle plan? Phase 1 involves orbital bombardment of their major military installations using precision plasma strikes. This will eliminate their command structure and heavy weapons. Phase 2 deploys our ground forces to secure population centers. Phase 3 begins the harvesting of resources and population relocation to labor camps. And how many troops will we need for this operation? Conservative estimates suggest 50,000 soldiers should be more than adequate. Their primitive weapons cannot penetrate our personal armor, and our hover tanks will have complete battlefield superiority. The Admiral walked to the main viewing port, gazing down at the unsuspecting planet below. Lights from human cities twinkled like stars against the darkened continents. Soon those lights would dim as the hegemony established control over yet another primitive world. There's something almost sad about this, he mused aloud. These humans have just achieved interplanetary flight. They're probably dreaming of exploring the galaxy, meeting alien civilizations, sharing knowledge and culture. He clicked his mandibles in dark amusement. Instead, they get us. Commander Krilltalk joined him at the viewport. Sir, there is one curiosity in the intelligence reports. The humans appear to have a significant military-industrial complex despite their primitive technology. They produce weapons and vehicles at an unusually high rate. Oh? Zexai's four eyes focused on his subordinate with mild interest. Yes, sir. They manufacture approximately 400 of these Abrams tanks per year, along with thousands of smaller vehicles and aircraft. It seems excessive for a species that has never faced external threats. The Admiral considered this information briefly before dismissing it. They probably fight amongst themselves. Primitive species often engage in territorial disputes over resources. It actually works in our favor. They'll have experience in warfare, which means they'll understand when they're beaten. Should we expect organized resistance, sir? Brief and futile at best, Zexai replied confidently. Once they see our technology in action, any sensible human commander will surrender immediately. Those who don't will be quickly eliminated by our superior firepower. The tactical display updated with real-time intelligence from their stealth probes. Human military bases showed routine activity. Troops conducting training exercises, vehicles moving in standard patrol patterns, aircraft practicing formations. There was no indication they suspected the approaching threat. Admiral, Communications Officer Vextar called from his station. We're receiving another diplomatic transmission from the planet. More peaceful overtures, no doubt, Zexai sighed. Put it through. The hologram showed the same human female from before, but this time she was accompanied by several other officials and what appeared to be military officers. The Admiral noticed their uniforms and insignia with professional interest. At least they maintained some form of military hierarchy. Greetings again, friends from the stars, the human leader began. We've prepared a formal welcome ceremony for your arrival. Our military commanders are eager to share tactical knowledge and learn about your advanced technologies. We've also prepared demonstrations of our own capabilities, including live-fire exercises with our latest equipment. The bridge erupted in clicking laughter once more. The humans wanted to show off their primitive weapons to beings who possessed technology centuries beyond their comprehension. How delightfully naive, Zexai commented. Very well, tell them we accept their invitation. We shall arrive tomorrow to witness their impressive military demonstrations. As the transmission ended, the Admiral turned to his staff with renewed enthusiasm. Gentlemen, tomorrow we begin the easiest conquest in hegemony history. Ready the invasion fleet and prepare for planetary assault. I want this wrapped up before the High Command even knows we've engaged the enemy. The crew dispersed to their duties with efficient precision, each confident in their superior technology and inevitable victory. None of them paid much attention to the final intelligence reports coming in from their stealth probes. Reports showing unusual activity around human tank, depots and the mysterious movement of heavy equipment under cover of darkness. After all, what could these primitive humans possibly do with their crude metal boxes and chemical-powered weapons against the might of the hegemony? The M1 Abrams tanks were obsolete relics compared to their advanced hover tanks. Tomorrow would bring a demonstration of superior technology that these humans would never forget, if any of them survived to remember it. Colonel Sarah Chen watched the morning sun rise over the Nevada desert as she stood atop her command vehicle, binoculars trained on the horizon. The joint military exercise was scheduled to begin in 3 hours, and representatives from 6 nations had gathered to demonstrate Earth's latest military capabilities to their alien visitors. What should have been humanity's proudest moment was about to become its darkest hour. "Colonel, we're receiving multiple contacts on radar," Sergeant Martinez called from inside the command vehicle. "Incoming aircraft from the northwest, altitude 12,000 feet and descending." Chen lowered her binoculars and climbed down from the vehicle. "That's them. Right on schedule." She had spent weeks preparing for this demonstration, carefully selecting the best equipment and most experienced crews to showcase human military prowess. If only she had known what was really coming. The alien vessels appeared as black dots against the morning sky, growing larger as they approached the testing range. As they drew closer, their impossible design became apparent. Sleek, wingless craft that moved through the air with fluid grace, defying everything humans understood about aerodynamics. "Jesus Christ," whispered Captain Rodriguez, the tank company commander standing beside her. "Look at the size of those things." The largest vessel was easily 800 feet long, its hull gleaming with an oily, dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Smaller escort craft flanked it, each one larger than humanity's biggest transport aircraft. They moved without sound, without visible propulsion, hovering above the demonstration area like mechanical angels of death. "All units, maintain formation and prepare for the demonstration as planned," Colonel Chen broadcast over the radio network. Despite her growing unease, she remained committed to showing these aliens what human engineering could accomplish. The alien flagship settled onto the desert floor with impossible gentleness for something so massive. A section of its hull dilated open like an iris, and figures began emerging onto the sand. Even at a distance, their inhuman forms were clearly visible. Tall, insectoid creatures moving with predatory grace. "Colonel Chen," the voice came through her communication headset in perfect English, though it carried strange clicking undertones. "I am Admiral Zexhai of the Hegemony Fleet. We are honored to witness your military capabilities." Chen activated her headset microphone. "Welcome to Earth, Admiral. We've prepared a comprehensive demonstration of our latest military hardware. I think you'll be impressed with what human ingenuity has achieved. I'm certain we will be fascinated by your primitive technologies," came the reply, followed by what sounded suspiciously like laughter. The demonstration began with an air show. F-22 Raptors screamed overhead in tight formation, their afterburners painting trails of fire across the blue sky. They performed precision maneuvers, showing off their speed and agility while firing training rounds at designated targets. The pilots pushed their machines to the limits, desperate to impress these visitors from the stars. On the ground, Chen watched the alien delegation through her binoculars. They stood motionless, apparently unimpressed by the aerial display. Occasionally, she heard more of those strange clicking sounds that might have been their version of laughter. "Beginning ground demonstration," Rodriguez announced over the radio. Tank company advanced to firing positions. A dozen M1A2 Abrams tanks rumbled across the desert floor, their massive treads throwing up clouds of dust. The 68-ton war machines moved in perfect formation, their 120mm cannons tracking toward predetermined targets downrange. Each tank represented the pinnacle of human armored warfare: composite armor capable of withstanding direct hits from enemy shells, sophisticated fire control systems that could engage targets at extreme range, and main guns that could punch through any known armor plating. "Target acquired," called Tank Commander Lieutenant Murphy over the radio. "Range 2,000 meters, enemy armor simulation. All units fire at will," Rodriguez commanded. The desert erupted in thunder as 12 main guns fired simultaneously. The muzzle flashes were brilliant in the morning light, and the concussion waves rolled across the observation area like physical blows. Downrange, the target vehicles, old tanks filled with explosive charges, disappeared in massive fireballs as depleted uranium penetrators tore through their armor. "Direct hits on all targets," reported the range officer. "Excellent marksmanship, Tank Company." Colonel Chen felt a surge of pride as she watched the smoke clear from the target area. The demonstration had been flawless, showcasing the precision and destructive power of human military technology. Surely the aliens would be impressed by such a display. She was about to contact Admiral Zexhai when her radio crackled with an urgent transmission from the radar station. Colonel, we're detecting massive energy spikes from the alien vessels. Multiple weapon systems coming online across their entire fleet. Chen's blood turned to ice. Repeat that, radar station. Ma'am, they're powering up weapons. Energy signatures are off the charts. This isn't a peaceful visit, they're preparing to attack. Before Chen could respond, the sky lit up with brilliant beams of coherent light. The alien escort craft had opened fire on the human aircraft still circling overhead. F-22 Raptors, the most advanced fighters in Earth's arsenal, simply evaporated under the focused plasma beams. 12 of humanity's finest pilots died in seconds, their aircraft vaporized so completely that no debris even reached the ground. All units, we are under attack, Chen screamed into her radio. This is not a drill. Engage hostile forces immediately. The remaining human aircraft scattered, trying desperately to evade the alien weapons, but it was hopeless. The enemy's targeting systems tracked them effortlessly, and one by one, Earth's fighters fell from the sky in brilliant flashes of light. On the ground, Rodriguez was already issuing orders to his tank crews. Tank company, traverse left, engage the alien ground forces. High explosive rounds, fire at will. The Abrams tanks swung their massive guns toward the alien landing site, where strange vehicles were emerging from the spacecraft. The enemy machines looked nothing like human tanks. They hovered several feet above the ground on invisible fields of force, their weapons glowing with ominous energy. Contact front enemy armor 2,000 meters, Murphy called out. 12 120mm cannons roared again, sending high explosive rounds screaming toward the alien vehicles. The shells struck their targets with tremendous force, producing massive explosions that should have destroyed any known armor. But when the smoke cleared, the alien hover tanks remained intact, their energy shields flickering blue where the human shells had struck. The primitive chemical explosives had been completely ineffective against their advanced defensive systems. No effect, Rodriguez reported with growing panic. Our main guns can't penetrate their armor. The alien response was swift and devastating. Plasma beams lanced out from their hover tanks, striking the human armor with surgical precision. The first Abrams tank hit simply ceased to exist. 70 tons of advanced composite armor and sophisticated electronics vaporized in a microsecond of superheated plasma. Murphy's down, someone screamed over the radio. Direct hit, no survivors. More plasma beams reached out across the desert and more tanks died. The human crews fought desperately, maneuvering for better firing positions, switching to armor-piercing rounds, even attempting ramming attacks. Nothing worked. Their most advanced weapons were useless against technology centuries beyond their comprehension. Within 10 minutes, the entire tank company had been destroyed. 12 of the finest armored vehicles humanity had ever produced were nothing but scattered atoms in the Nevada sand. Colonel Chen stood paralyzed with shock as she watched her command disintegrate around her. This was supposed to be a peaceful first contact, a chance to share knowledge and establish diplomatic relations. Instead, it had become a massacre that demonstrated humanity's complete helplessness against superior alien technology. Admiral, she spoke into her headset with a trembling voice. Why? We offered you friendship and cooperation. The alien's response came through with unmistakable amusement. Friendship? My dear primitive creature, you misunderstand the situation entirely. We are not here for friendship. We are here for conquest. Your weapons are so laughably inadequate that this isn't even a battle. It's an extermination. General Marcus Thompson gripped the edge of the situation table as reports flooded in from around the globe. The Nevada demonstration had been a complete disaster. An entire armored company wiped out in minutes by alien weapons that made humanity's best technology look like Stone Age clubs. But Thompson hadn't earned his stars by giving up at the first sign of trouble. Sir, we're receiving similar reports from bases worldwide, announced Major Williams, his aide-de-camp. The aliens have launched simultaneous attacks on military installations across 6 continents. Initial resistance has been ineffective. Thompson studied the holographic display showing red markers spreading across the world map like a plague. Each marker represented a human military base under assault by alien forces equipped with hover tanks and plasma weapons. The enemy's technology was overwhelming, but something nagged at the back of Thompson's mind. Major, bring up the tactical analysis of the Nevada engagement, he commanded. The display shifted to show a detailed breakdown of the alien attack. Energy weapon specifications, hover tank capabilities, shield effectiveness. All of it painted a picture of technological superiority that should have made resistance impossible. But Thompson had spent 40 years studying warfare, and he noticed something the panicking reports had missed. "Look at their deployment patterns," he said, pointing to the tactical display. "They're using minimal forces for each assault. Why would they hold back if their technology is so superior?" Major Williams studied the data with confusion. "Sir, intelligence estimates suggest they could have deployed 10 times as many forces. Their main fleet is still in orbit, apparently waiting." "Exactly." Thompson's eyes gleamed with the first hint of hope since the attacks began. "They're overconfident. They think this will be easy, so they're not committing their full strength." He turned to the communications officer. "Get me General Patterson at Fort Hood." The holographic display flickered and resolved into the image of a weather-beaten man in full combat gear. Behind him, explosions lit the Texas sky as alien hover tanks swept across the base perimeter. "Marcus, thank God." Patterson's voice crackled through the communication link. "We're getting slaughtered out here. These bastards just vaporized my entire forward defense line. Nothing we throw at them even slows them down." "Jim, listen to me carefully." Thompson leaned forward intensely. "I need you to fall back to secondary positions, but keep your heavy armor in reserve. Don't deploy the Abrams yet." "What?" "Marcus, they're cutting through our defenses like paper. I need every tank I can get. Trust me, Jim, let them think they've won. Pull back to the training grounds and wait for my signal. And when you do deploy those tanks, I want you to use the Mark V ammunition." Patterson's face showed confusion and growing desperation. "The Mark V? That's still experimental. We've only tested it on paper targets." "Then it's time for a field test," Thompson said grimly. "And Jim, make sure your tank crews understand. This isn't about fighting fair anymore. This is about survival." As the communication ended, Thompson turned his attention to similar calls with base commanders around the world. The strategy was risky. Allow the aliens to advance deeper into human territory while holding back their most capable forces. But something about the enemy's tactics suggested they were making the same mistake humans had made countless times throughout history, underestimating their opponents. Meanwhile, at Fort Hood, General Patterson rallied his remaining forces as alien hover tanks swept through the outer perimeter with contemptuous ease. The enemy machines moved like deadly ghosts, their plasma weapons reducing human vehicles to smoking scrap metal. Infantry scattered before their advance, unable to even damage the aliens' energy shields with conventional weapons. "Sir, we've lost Delta Company," reported Colonel Hayes, Patterson's tank commander. "The bastards just walked right through them. Our AT-4s and tow missiles don't even scratch their armor." Patterson watched through his binoculars as human soldiers fought desperately against impossible odds. Young men and women who had trained their entire lives for combat were being slaughtered by technology they couldn't even comprehend. Every instinct screamed at him to deploy his armor immediately, but Thompson's words echoed in his mind. "Colonel, prep the Abrams for combat, but keep them hidden in the maintenance bays. Load Mark V ammunition exclusively. Sir, the Mark V rounds are still classified. We only have about 20 shells per tank." "Then we'd better make them count," Patterson replied through gritted teeth. High above Earth's atmosphere, Admiral HFY monitored the invasion with growing boredom. His forces were performing exactly as expected. Human resistance crumbled before superior hegemony technology like sand before a hurricane. The primitive creatures couldn't even damage his hover tanks, let alone threaten his orbital fleet. "Admiral, ground commanders are reporting excellent progress," Commander Kriltok announced from his position at the tactical station. "Estimated time to complete planetary subjugation has been revised downward to 48 hours. 48 hours seems excessive," HFY replied with amusement. "At this rate, we could conquer their entire world before dinner." "Have our forces encountered any significant resistance?" "None whatsoever, sir. Their most advanced weapons are completely ineffective against our shields and armor. Several ground commanders have requested permission to begin the harvesting phase early." The Admiral studied the tactical display showing the progress of his invasion forces. Red markers indicated hegemony victory spreading across the human world like spilled blood. Each victory represented the destruction of primitive, human military units that had fought bravely but futilely against superior technology. "What happened to those tank formations they were so proud of in their demonstration?" HFY asked with casual interest. "Mostly destroyed in the initial attacks, Admiral. A few formations appear to have retreated to secondary positions, but they pose no threat." Our intelligence suggests they're simply delaying the inevitable. Cowards, the Admiral clicked dismissively. Well, no matter. Order the ground commanders to begin establishing forward bases. I want this planet secured before the High Command starts asking questions about our extended absence. Back on Earth, the tide of alien victory seemed unstoppable. Base after base fell to the hegemony's advanced forces, their hover tanks sweeping aside human resistance with contemptuous ease. But in hidden positions around the world, human tank crews waited in their armored vehicles, their hands steady on unfired weapons loaded with ammunition their enemies had never encountered. At Fort Hood, Staff Sergeant Michael Chen sat in the commander's position of his M1A2 Abrams, watching through his periscopes as alien hover tanks approached the training grounds. His crew had been together for 3 years, driver Rodriguez, gunner Thompson, and loader Williams. They were professionals, veterans of conflicts around the world, but nothing had prepared them for this. Contact front, enemy armor, 1,500 meters, gunner Thompson reported calmly, his voice steady despite the circumstances. Target acquired. Hold your fire, Chen commanded, even as every instinct screamed at him to engage. Wait for the colonel's signal. Through his periscopes, he could see the alien vehicles moving with fluid grace across the training ground. Their weapons glowed with ominous energy, and their shields shimmered like heat mirages in the Texas sun. They moved without fear, without caution, the mark of predators who had never faced anything capable of fighting back. Sergeant, they're getting closer, Rodriguez called from the driver's position. Range is down to 1,000 meters. Chen's radio crackled with Colonel Hayes' voice. All units, execute pattern alpha. Engage targets at will. Make them count, boys. Target locked, Thompson announced. Ready to fire. Chen took a deep breath, thinking of all the human soldiers who had died trying to stop these aliens with inferior weapons. This was their chance, perhaps humanity's only chance, to prove that superior technology wasn't everything. Fire, he commanded. The 120mm cannon roared, sending its experimental Mark V round screaming across the training ground at over 1,000 meters per second. The tungsten cord penetrator struck the nearest hover tank's energy shield and, for the first time in the invasion, something unexpected happened. The shield flickered, sparked, and collapsed entirely. The tungsten cord Mark V round punched through the alien hover tank's collapsed energy shield like it was tissue paper. The experimental depleted uranium penetrator, enhanced with human ingenuity and desperation, tore through advanced alien armor that had been considered impervious to primitive human weapons. The hover tank simply ceased to exist, vaporized in a catastrophic explosion that sent shockwaves across the Texas training ground. Staff Sergeant Chen stared through his periscopes in amazement. Holy shit, we got him. We actually got him. Target destroyed, Gunner Thompson shouted with fierce joy. Loading next round. Across the training ground, 11 other M1A2 Abrams tanks opened fire simultaneously. The desert erupted in thunder as 120mm cannons roared their defiance against the alien invaders. Mark V rounds streaked through the air at incredible velocity, each one carrying humanity's rage and determination in its tungsten core. The results were devastating. Alien hover tanks that had seemed invincible minutes before exploded in brilliant fireballs as human rounds punched through their shields and armor. The enemy formation, which had been advancing with arrogant confidence, suddenly found itself under assault from weapons that could actually hurt them. Impossible, came a panicked transmission in the alien language, automatically translated by their communication systems. The primitive projectiles are penetrating our defenses. Request immediate reinforcements. But the Abrams crews weren't done. Years of training and combat experience kicked in, as they demonstrated why the M1 had earned its reputation as one of the most fearsome battle tanks ever built. These weren't just metal boxes on tracks. They were precision instruments of warfare operated by professional soldiers who understood their craft. Target left, range 800 meters, Thompson called out, already tracking another hover tank. Identified, Chen confirmed. Fire. The second alien vehicle died as spectacularly as the first. The Mark V round tore through its energy shield and detonated its power core, sending alien debris raining across the battlefield. All around them, other Abrams crews were demonstrating similar lethal efficiency. Tank Commander Lieutenant Sarah Murphy, callsign Iron Lady, had the best crew at Fort Hood, and they proved it by destroying 3 alien hover tanks in less than 2 minutes. Her gunner, Sergeant Adams, was a master of his craft who could put rounds through a dinner plate at 2,000 meters. Contact right. Multiple targets cluster formation, Adams reported calmly. Engage at will, Murphy replied. Show these alien bastards what American armor can do. Adams smiled grimly as he lined up his shot. The aliens had made a fatal mistake. They'd clustered their hover tanks together, assuming their shields would protect them from human weapons. Instead, they'd created a target-rich environment for experienced tank crews. The first Mark V round destroyed the lead hover tank. The second took out another vehicle trying to retreat. The third caught a hovering tank attempting to flank their position, turning it into a spectacular fireball that lit up the afternoon sky. 3 for 3, Adams announced with satisfaction. These experimental rounds are beautiful. Keep it up, Murphy replied. We've got more customers incoming. Indeed, more alien hover tanks were rushing toward the human positions, but something had changed in their behavior. They no longer advanced with the casual arrogance they'd shown earlier. Now they moved with caution, using terrain features for cover, trying to identify the source of the unexpected resistance. But the Abrams crews had spent years training for exactly this kind of engagement. They knew how to use terrain to their advantage, how to coordinate fires, and how to achieve maximum lethality with minimum exposure. These were tanks designed specifically to kill other tanks, operated by soldiers who had dedicated their lives to mastering that deadly art. Staff Sergeant Chen's crew claimed their 5th kill when they ambushed a hover tank attempting to flank the American position. The alien vehicle exploded so violently that burning debris landed on other enemy tanks, causing confusion in their ranks. Target destroyed, Thompson reported with grim satisfaction. Acquiring next target. Hold fire, Chen ordered, studying the battlefield through his periscopes. Let them come to us. Use their aggression against them. It was a lesson learned from decades of armored warfare. Patience and positioning often trumped raw firepower. The aliens might have superior technology, but they were learning that superior tactics could level the playing field. High above, Admiral Zexhai watched the tactical display with growing alarm as red markers began disappearing from the Fort Hood area. His ground commander's reports made no sense. How could primitive human weapons be destroying advanced hegemony hover tanks? Commander Krilltalk, he called sharply. What's the situation at the Texas facility? Krilltalk's mandibles clicked with nervous energy as he studied the incoming reports. Admiral, we're receiving confused transmissions from Ground Commander Vexitai. He claims the human vehicles are penetrating our armor with kinetic projectiles. Impossible, Zexhai snapped. Our shields can deflect plasma cannons. How can crude metal projectiles cause damage? Sir, the ground commander is requesting immediate air support. He's lost over 30 hover tanks in the past 10 minutes. The Admiral's 4 eyes focused on the tactical display with growing concern. 30 hover tanks represented a significant portion of his ground assault force. More importantly, it represented the first serious resistance his forces had encountered since the invasion began. Deploy atmospheric fighters immediately, he ordered. I want those human positions obliterated from orbit if necessary. But even as he issued the command, Zexhai felt a cold certainty creeping into his thoughts. The humans had surprised him once. What other surprises were they hiding? Back at Fort Hood, the tank crews were proving that human engineering and determination could overcome even the most advanced alien technology. The M1 Abrams, dismissed by the aliens as a primitive relic, was systematically destroying their supposedly superior hover tanks with devastating efficiency. Bravo Company, this is Colonel Hayes, came the transmission over the radio network. Outstanding work, people. You've just proven that American armor is still the best in any galaxy. But we're not done yet. Enemy air support incoming from the north. Staff Sergeant Chen looked up from his periscopes to see alien atmospheric fighters approaching at high speed. The sleek wingless craft moved with the same impossible grace as the hover tanks, their weapons already beginning to glow with lethal energy. Driver, reverse slope position. Now, Chen ordered. Rodriguez threw the 68-ton tank into reverse, backing them into a hull-down position behind a ridgeline, where only their turret remained exposed. Around them, other Abrams crews executed similar maneuvers with practiced precision. The alien fighters screamed overhead, their plasma weapons lancing down toward the human positions. But the tank crews had chosen their positions well. Most of the energy beams struck empty ground or splashed harmlessly off the Abrams' heavily armored frontal sections. They want to play air-to-ground? Chen muttered grimly. Thompson, load high explosive airburst. Let's see how these alien hotshots handle some flak. The 120mm cannon elevated toward the sky as Thompson programmed the experimental airburst round. It wasn't designed for anti-aircraft work, but desperate times called for creative solutions. Ready, Thompson announced. Fire, Chen commanded. The round screamed skyward and detonated in a massive cloud of shrapnel directly in the path of an alien fighter. The craft's shields flickered under the unexpected assault, and pieces of alien technology rained down on the battlefield. Other Abrams crews followed suit, filling the sky with high explosive rounds that treated the alien fighters like clay pigeons. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective. Human ingenuity and raw firepower proving once again that sometimes the simple solution was the best solution. The tide of battle was turning, and the aliens were beginning to learn that underestimating human military technology had been a fatal mistake. Admiral Zexhi's four eyes blazed with fury as he studied the tactical reports flooding in from battlefields across Earth. What should have been a simple planetary conquest was turning into a nightmare of unprecedented proportions. The primitive humans were not only fighting back, they were winning. Impossible, he roared, his mandibles clicking with rage. How are these backwards creatures destroying our forces? Commander Krilltalk approached with visible fear, clutching a datapad filled with disturbing intelligence reports. Admiral, our ground forces are reporting catastrophic losses at multiple locations. The human armored vehicles are far more dangerous than our initial assessments indicated. Show me, Zexhi demanded. The holographic display materialized, showing battlefield footage from their surviving hover tanks. The images were shocking. Human tanks emerging from concealed positions, their primitive cannons roaring, and hegemony hover tanks exploding in brilliant fireballs. The supposedly invincible energy shields were collapsing under the impact of human projectiles, leaving the advanced alien armor vulnerable to weapons that should have been utterly ineffective. This is from Fort Hood, Texas, Krilltalk explained, his voice trembling. Ground Commander Vexthai deployed 80 hover tanks in the initial assault. Only 12 remain operational. 80 tanks? Zexhi's voice was barely a whisper. A single human base destroyed 68 of our most advanced ground vehicles? Yes, Admiral. The human tanks, these M1 Abrams units, are using some form of advanced kinetic penetrator that our shields cannot deflect. Our armor, designed to withstand plasma weapons and energy blasts, offers minimal protection against high-velocity solid projectiles. The Admiral studied the tactical data with growing horror. The human tanks weren't just lucky. They were demonstrating tactical sophistication that suggested extensive combat experience. They used terrain effectively, coordinated their fires, and employed combined arms tactics that maximized their limited numbers. What about our atmospheric fighters? Zexhi asked desperately. Ineffective, sir. The humans have adapted their main guns to engage our aircraft with explosive rounds. We've lost 37 fighters over the Texas facility alone. The bridge fell silent as the full scope of the disaster became clear. The hegemony, which had conquered 3,000 worlds, was being systematically defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive savages. The implications were staggering. Sir? Communications Officer Vextar called from his station. Ground Commander Zarketh is requesting immediate orbital bombardment support at the Colorado facility. He reports his entire armored division has been destroyed by human tanks emerging from underground positions. Zexhi felt his confidence crumbling like sand. Underground positions? They were prepared for us? It appears so, Admiral. Intelligence suggests the humans have been observing our tactics and developing countermeasures. Their tank crews seem to understand exactly how to defeat our technology. On Earth, the news of the alien defeats was spreading through military communications networks like wildfire. General Thompson stood in the Pentagon Situation Room, watching as red markers on the global display began turning green. Human tank units equipped with Mark V ammunition were systematically destroying alien forces that had seemed invincible just hours before. Sir, General Patterson reports complete victory at Fort Hood, announced Major Williams with barely controlled excitement. 12 M1A2 Abrams tanks destroyed over 100 alien vehicles. The enemy survivors have retreated to their spacecraft. Thompson allowed himself a grim smile. What about other theaters? Similar results across all major engagements, sir. Fort Knox reports destroying an entire alien hover tank regiment with minimal losses. The British Army's Challenger 2 tanks, equipped with our Mark V rounds, eliminated an alien force attacking their Salisbury training area. The Germans, Russians, and Chinese are reporting similar successes. The room buzzed with excitement as reports continued pouring in. The aliens' technological superiority, which had seemed overwhelming just hours ago, was proving insufficient against human tactical expertise and advanced metallurgy. The Mark V ammunition, a classified project combining depleted uranium with experimental tungsten cores, was punching through alien defenses like they were made of paper. "Sir," called the intelligence officer from his station, "we're intercepting alien communications. They're in full retreat at multiple locations and requesting orbital fire support." Thompson's expression hardened. "That's what I was afraid of. They can't beat our ground forces, so they're going to try to glass us from space." High above Earth, Admiral HFY was indeed considering exactly that option. His invasion force, which should have conquered the planet in 48 hours, had been decimated by human resistance. The primitive projectile weapons were proving devastatingly effective against hegemony technology, and his ground commanders were reporting tactical situations that bordered on the impossible. "Admiral," Weapons Master Thrickson approached with obvious reluctance, "the orbital bombardment systems are ready. We can sterilize the human tank positions from space." HFY considered the option with growing desperation. Orbital bombardment would certainly eliminate the human armored units, but it would also destroy the planet's infrastructure and population, resources the hegemony needed for their expanding empire. More importantly, it would represent a completed mission that their supposedly superior ground forces had been utterly defeated by primitive opponents. "Sir," Commander Krilltalk interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the human leadership." The holographic display flickered, showing the same human female who had welcomed them so naively just days before. But now her expression was hard, confident, and utterly without fear. "Admiral HFY," she began, "I trust you've had an opportunity to reevaluate our military capabilities. Your ground forces are retreating across 6 continents, and your air support has proven ineffective against our defenses." The Admiral's mandibles clicked with rage. "Your primitive weapons cannot save you, human. We possess the power to destroy your entire world from orbit." "Yes, you do," the human leader agreed calmly. "And if you choose that path, you'll certainly win. But you'll also be explaining to your superiors why you had to resort to planetary bombardment against a species you claimed was technologically inferior. How will that look in your reports?" HFY felt the words hit home like physical blows. The High Command expected conquered worlds to provide resources, not craters. More importantly, they expected their advanced forces to achieve victory through superior technology, not crude orbital bombardment, the human continued. "Additionally, you should know that we've been recording this entire conflict. Our analysis of your technology, tactical patterns, and weapons capabilities is being transmitted to observation posts throughout this solar system. If you destroy Earth, that information will reach other human colonies and allied species within months." "You're bluffing," HFY snarled, though uncertainty crept into his voice. "Are we?" The human smiled coldly. "Your hover tanks use anti-grav generators that create distinctive energy signatures. Your plasma weapons operate on focused particle beam technology. Your shields use rotating frequency harmonics to deflect energy weapons, but are vulnerable to kinetic penetrators, exceeding certain mass and velocity thresholds. Shall I continue?" The Admiral realized with growing horror that the humans hadn't just been fighting, they'd been studying. Every engagement had been a learning opportunity. Every destroyed alien vehicle a chance to understand hegemony technology and develop countermeasures. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Withdrawal," the human replied simply. "Leave our system immediately, and we'll consider this a misunderstanding. Continue your aggression and we'll demonstrate additional capabilities you haven't seen yet." As if to emphasize her point, the tactical display suddenly showed new contacts rising from hidden positions across Earth's surface. Hundreds of M1 Abrams tanks were emerging from concealed bunkers, their main guns trained skyward. Each one was loaded with Mark V ammunition specifically designed to penetrate alien armor. More disturbing still were the larger weapon systems coming online: railguns, particle accelerators and other experimental weapons that had been dismissed as theoretical by hegemony intelligence. The humans had been preparing for this war long before first contact, and they were ready to take it to space if necessary. Impossible, HFY whispered. You're a primitive species. You shouldn't have this level of military sophistication. The human leader's smile was utterly without warmth. Admiral, you made the mistake of judging our technology without understanding our history. We've been perfecting the art of warfare for 10,000 years. Our M1 Abrams tank isn't primitive. It's the culmination of centuries of armored warfare experience. And it's just the beginning of what we're capable of. The transmission ended, leaving the alien bridge in stunned silence. The Admiral stared at the tactical display showing his battered invasion force and realized that he faced a choice between humiliating retreat and potentially catastrophic escalation against opponents who had already proven far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Admiral HFY stood alone in his private quarters aboard the flagship Conquest's Edge, staring out at the blue-green world that had shattered everything he thought he knew about warfare. The tactical report spread across his desk told a story of complete military humiliation, a story that would destroy his career and possibly his life when it reached the high command. His invasion force, once numbering over 50,000 troops and 2,000 hover tanks, had been reduced to barely functional remnants. The primitive human tanks, those crude metal boxes he had dismissed so contemptuously, had proven to be the most effective anti-armor weapons his forces had ever encountered. The M1 Abrams, operating with crews that demonstrated tactical sophistication far beyond their apparent technological level, had systematically dismantled his military superiority. A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Commander Krilltalk appeared in holographic form, his mandibles clicking with barely controlled panic. Admiral, the High Command is requesting an immediate status report. Fleet Admiral Corton himself is demanding to know why the invasion is taking so long. HFY closed his 4 eyes and felt the weight of impending disgrace crushing down upon him. Tell the High Command that we have encountered unexpected complications. Sir, with respect, they're going to want specifics. How do we explain that a primitive species has defeated our most advanced military technology? The Admiral considered this question with growing dread. How could he possibly explain that human projectile weapons, technology the hegemony had abandoned centuries ago, were more effective than their plasma cannons? How could he describe the tactical brilliance of tank crews who seemed to understand armored warfare better than species that had been fighting galactic wars for millennia? Admiral, Krilltalk continued nervously, Ground Commander HFY is reporting that human tank formations are advancing on his position. He's requesting permission to retreat to the landing zones. Retreat? The word tasted like poison in HFY's mouth. In 300 years of military service, he had never authorized a retreat from inferior forces. But the alternative was the complete destruction of his remaining ground forces by enemies who had already proven their lethal effectiveness. Grant the retreat order, he said finally, each word feeling like a nail in his own coffin. All ground forces are to withdraw to their transport craft immediately. As the order went out across the fleet communication network, HFY received reports from around the human world. His forces were in full retreat everywhere, pursued by M1 Abrams tanks that hunted them like mechanical predators. The humans weren't content to simply drive off the invaders. They were systematically destroying every alien vehicle they could find, studying the wreckage and adding to their understanding of hegemony technology. On Earth, Staff Sergeant Chen watched through his periscopes as alien hover tanks fled across the Texas desert toward their landing craft. His Abrams tank had claimed 11 confirmed kills during the engagement, making his crew one of the most successful in the entire conflict. But more importantly, they had proven something that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the galaxy. Driver, advance on the enemy retreat route, Chen commanded. We're not done with these bastards yet. The 68-ton war machine rumbled forward, its 120mm cannon loaded with another Mark V round. Around them, other Abrams tanks moved in coordinated formations, their crews displaying the professional competence that had made them the most feared tank force on Earth. And now, apparently in the galaxy as well, Contact Front, Gunner Thompson reported. Enemy hover tank attempting to reach the landing zone. Target acquired, Chen confirmed. Fire. The cannon roared once more, sending another tungsten cord penetrator screaming across the desert. The alien vehicle exploded in a brilliant fireball, adding to the growing graveyard of destroyed hegemony technology scattered across the battlefield. General Thompson watched from the Pentagon as similar scenes played out across the globe. Human tank forces, equipped with the experimental Mark V ammunition that had proven so devastatingly effective, were pursuing retreating alien forces and destroying them with methodical precision. The invasion that should have conquered Earth in 48 hours had turned into a rout that would be studied in military academies for generations. "Sir," reported Major Williams, "we're receiving retreat confirmations from all major theaters. The aliens are withdrawing to their spacecraft under heavy fire from our armored units." "What are our losses?" Thompson asked. "Remarkably light, sir. We lost approximately 200 tanks across all engagements while destroying over 1,500 alien vehicles. The Mark V ammunition performed beyond all expectations." Thompson nodded grimly. The cost in human lives had been significant, but far less than anyone had dared hope when facing such technologically advanced enemies. More importantly, humanity had learned valuable lessons about galactic warfare and demonstrated capabilities that would demand respect from any future alien encounters. High above Earth, Admiral Zexhai made the most difficult decision of his military career. He activated the fleet-wide communication system, his voice carrying to every ship in the invasion force. "All vessels, this is Admiral Zexhai. We are withdrawing from this system immediately. Prepare for hyperspace jump to the outer marker beacon." The bridge crew exchanged glances of barely concealed relief. They had witnessed something unprecedented: the complete defeat of hegemony forces by technologically inferior opponents. Every military doctrine they had learned, every assumption about technological superiority, had been shattered by human ingenuity and tactical expertise. "Admiral," Communications Officer Vextar called from his station, "we're receiving a final transmission from the human leadership." The holographic display showed the same human female who had delivered the ultimatum hours before, but now her expression was one of cold satisfaction rather than desperate defiance. "Admiral Zexhai, we trust you've reached a reasonable decision. Your forces are welcome to depart peacefully, but understand that any future aggression against Earth or human colonies will be met with the full force of our military capabilities." She paused, allowing the implications to sink in. "We've learned much about your technology during this conflict. Your weapons, your tactics, your strategic capabilities. All have been analyzed and cataloged. We know how to defeat you now, and that knowledge will spread to every human world and allied species in this galaxy." The transmission continued with chilling efficiency. "Additionally, we're prepared to offer our tactical expertise and weapons technology to any species currently under threat from the hegemony. Your empire's expansion may have just encountered its first permanent obstacle." Zexhai realized with growing horror that the humans were offering to share their tank technology and anti-hegemony tactics with other species. The M1 Abrams, modified with Mark V ammunition, could be produced by any civilization with basic industrial capabilities. The tactical knowledge that had proven so effective against his forces could be disseminated across the galaxy within months. The human leader's final words carried the weight of historical inevitability. "The age of easy conquest is over, Admiral. The galaxy just became a much more dangerous place for empires built on the assumption of technological superiority." As the transmission ended, Admiral Zexhai gave the order that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "All ships jump to hyperspace. We're going home." The hegemony fleet vanished into the depths of space, leaving behind only wreckage and the echoes of their first major defeat on Earth. Human tank crews emerged from their vehicles to survey battlefields littered with the remains of alien technology that had once seemed invincible. Staff Sergeant Chen climbed out of his Abrams and patted the tank's armored hull with genuine affection. "Good girl," he said quietly. "You showed those alien bastards what American engineering can do." Around him, other tank crews were conducting similar post-battle rituals, checking their vehicles and sharing stories of the engagement. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, proving that superior technology was no substitute for superior tactics, training, and sheer determination. The M1 Abrams, dismissed by the aliens as a primitive relic, had become the weapon that changed galactic history. And somewhere in the depths of space, the news was already spreading to civilizations that had been cowering before hegemony expansion. Earth had shown that the supposedly invincible empire could be defeated, and humanity was ready to share the knowledge of how to do it. The galaxy would never be the same again.